Well, Justin, we're in a bit of a curious scenario right now, aren't we? Because we've got 4 managerial vacancies all at the same time. And look, I know sackings aren't nothing new in the Championship, but I can't ever recall there being this many jobs available all at once. I may be completely wrong in that, but I can't think of many occasions where that's been the case.
It feels like we would remember, but generally I think they always just stack on top of each other. It's like one would open up, then it'd be filled, then another one would open up the following week or the week after that, and then it will be filled again. It's always been a stacked situation, whereas now, yeah, this is a unique scenario where 4 jobs are available. 4 good jobs, by the way. These are good jobs. Well, every job in the Championship is a good job, but all clubs looking to progress, if you like. So yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah, well, they've all happened very recently as well, haven't they, apart from Southampton. So we haven't really got to a stage yet where shortlists are being reported and what have you. So with it being an international break, I thought you and I could have a go at doing some matchmaking, Peachy. We go through all 4 of the available jobs and pick out the manager who we think is best suited to each club. Well, also being realistic, of course. Just for a bit of fun, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's international break. We can cut loose a little bit. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. We love to cut loose around here, don't we? I will admit, just before we start, I had to stop myself twice for making a really stupid error. Firstly, by picking Steve Cooper, completely forgetting he's a manager in Denmark now, and then picking Graham Potter, who completely forgetting he's managing Sweden now. I just kept looking at it, looking at the manager odds, and I was thinking, why aren't those two at the top of the market? And then that would explain why, but I guess it's out of sight, out of mind, I guess. Well, since we're matchmaking, Justin, producer Tom, give us some sexy music. My darling, I can't get enough of your love, babe. I can't actually hear the music. That's just how I'm imagining it sounding in my head. So hopefully it's somewhere along those lines. But look, Justin, we'll kick things off with Middlesbrough because they're probably the most interesting one of them being sat in the top 2, because how often do you see a job become available at a Championship side literally sat in the automatics? I haven't really seen any reliable reports so far on who the next manager will be, possibly because even though we knew he was leaving at the weekend, it's taken a few extra days for Rob Edwards to officially go to Wolves. So with that being said, Justin, who would be the manager you would suggest for this role?
I've gone a bit rogue, maybe.
Okay.
I've gone with Steven Gerrard, Ryan.
Okay.
I've gone with Steven Gerrard.
Not who I was expecting to come out your mouth there, but fine.
Yes. I think, this is as rogue as I can get, mainly because I like coaches. I do. Firstly, I think Gary O'Neill was perfect for this, but I'm not going to go for him because I think there's a lot of fan resentment surrounding Gary O'Neill for reasons in the mid-2000s. I also think Lee Carsley's perfect for it as well, but he's just not going to leave the England under 21s at this stage. So I'm picking Steven Gerrard. I know he's been linked, and I know there was a possibility of him going there in the summer. And I'm actually not a massive fan of Steven Gerrard as a manager, mainly because his Aston Villa spell was quite poor. Won just 13 games, lost 19. It was bad, and the job Unai Emery has done since probably lays how rough of a time it was for Gerrard. They became quite dull and predictable. But he did turn Rangers into winners again. That's a positive. That's a bonus. And he has been at 2 clubs in the UK where expectations have been so high. So I think dropping into the Championship after earning a decent retirement in the Middle East is going to be perfect. Can't see him getting a Premier League job. And he didn't go back to Rangers very recently, obviously Danny Rule did. So I actually do think coming into the Championship is going to be a good step for Steven Gerrard. And it was cited that Steven Gerrard made a big difference for individuals. And with that in mind, I would expect him to have the same impact at Middlesbrough as Frank Lampard has done at Coventry.
Interesting. I mean, it would be hilarious if Gerrard and Lampard got promoted in the same season, because then we could say, see, guys, they can work together. Finally. I don't really know where I sit with Gerrard. I definitely wasn't expecting you to sit in that position with Gerrard. Firstly, with me, he's obviously from that class of players who were very successful, gone into management, and I think it's fair to say those guys have been given jobs mainly because of their playing career. Now, Gerrard did do brilliantly at Rangers. of course, the only non-Celtic manager to win the Scottish Premiership since 2011. Aston Villa was quite bad, and I have no idea, nor really care how he got on over in Saudi Arabia, but he does need somewhere to kickstart his managerial career, doesn't he? And the Championship seems like the perfect place for him to do that, doesn't it? Because you're right, he's not going to get a Premier League job. If I was Middlesbrough, in the position where you've got your best chance of promotion since the last time they got promoted in 2016, would I be willing to take that gamble on Gerrard? I don't know, because I think it is a gamble, admittedly.
It is a gamble. It is a gamble, mainly because that Aston Villa job ended up so poor. But then again, if it went well, he wouldn't be coming back into the Championship, would he? But I think Coventry had to take a risk with Frank Lampard because of how Frank Lampard's spells as manager just sort of went from quite high to just dropping. So I think Coventry have been in that same position, and it's paid off for them. And that's why I've been swayed a little bit here. I think Steven Gerrard, like Lampard, has got that aura at this level where players are going to buy into it. And as well as that, I think tactically, he might suit Middlesbrough quite nicely. It might be a good transition. He always favoured a 4-2-3-1, likes his win-backs high, and I think with Callum Britton and Matt Targett, they're going to get in good crossing positions. I think Hayden Hackney could hit new levels under Steven Gerrard's man management as well. Sorry, Nipan could come in and be that number 10 that Middlesbrough don't currently have until Riley McGree gets back to full fitness. And I think as well as that, Steven Gerrard's going to leave the coaching to his coaches. I know he spoke quite recently about becoming more of a 1v1 man manager, inspiration, sort of that sort of thing, and leaving the coaching to his coaches. That being said, if he's got Mick Beale, I think that makes me more confident that he can be a success, which is quite funny because Mick Beale has been anything but a success in the Championship as a head coach, but as a coach, he's effective. So it is a risk, and it will be interesting to see whether Steve Gibson is willing to dip back into going for ex-elites as managers, as he did with Michael Carrick. But I think with Steven Gerrard, he's got that experience of managing the high expectations, the ferocity of being a Rangers manager. He's been scorned at Aston Villa, so now he needs to bounce back, and that's really where I think if you're coming down from the Premier League into the Championship as a manager, you're trying to bounce back, aren't you? And I think Steven Gerrard, I think he could be a success like Lampard has.
Yeah. It is funny with Mick Beale, isn't it? Because I think he is probably a good coach as long as you keep a microphone away from him.
And a Twitter account.
And a Twitter account, whether it's in his name or not. Yeah, and with Hayden Hackney, I think that's a really valid point, because Hayden Hackney, learning from one of the greatest midfielders England's ever seen, certainly won't go amiss, will it? So, it would be interesting if that did happen.
Just one more thing to add.
Go on.
Completely irrelevant. Learned that Steven Gerrard became a granddad this summer.
Oh, is he mid-40s?
He's 45.
Okay. I suppose that could...
It's more to the point that he still looks like he's 25. I watched him as a child, and it's just that forever realisation that time is coming for us all.
Yeah. Footballers tend to have kids quite young, though.
They do.
Doesn't he? Like, Phil Foden's had a fair few, hasn't he? And he's only 23 or something like that.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not completely outside the realms of possibility, but yeah, when you think of a player who you watched a lot as a kid now being a granddad, yeah, that does make me feel quite old. Thanks, Justin. Let's get to my pick for the next Middlesbrough manager. And similar to Gerrard, it might also be a gamble, but I think it's definitely one worth taking, and that is Will Still. I mentioned him at the weekend, but I think he would be perfect for Borough, because even though his Southampton spell results-wise went pretty terribly, I saw more than enough evidence there that tactically this guy is very switched on, because Southampton were playing a lot better than their results suggest. They just couldn't put the ball in the back of the flipping net and often shot themselves in the foot at the back. The confidence that Southampton had been on the floor. Will Still needs a job where he takes a team who don't need picking up, and I think he can take them to that next level. And that's where Middlesbrough come in, because it's all smiles up there, despite Edwards pissing off. Optimism is high. Another thing is, if there's somewhere where Middlesbrough need to be better, it's creating chances. Southampton are one of the best chance creators in the division under Will Still. He's also got a point to prove and will be determined to make this work. If not, then where does his managerial career go next? And look, even if it doesn't end in promotion this season, you get yourself a manager with so much potential And he can take Borough on that journey with him to what I think will be a very successful managerial career. That's why I think Will Still is spot on for this, Justin.
I do think he is. I do think he is spot on. And I do agree with a lot of what you said. I just think it's a timing issue with Will Still. There are two things. One of them is I think he needs time out. I do. I think if this was the summer and Southampton wasn't an option back in the summer, Middlesbrough would have been perfect because he would develop players. The style of play will be attractive and he will overachieve. That's what we've been known to expect with Will Still from his time in France. But he's gone from one pressure environment at Southampton where he's got to pick the players up. And he's heading into another where they're in a promotion race. And I think that transition in such a short space of time will be a problem. The second thing, Ryan, is he moved back to the UK to be closer to his partner. Now, I've done my research. Lens is 240 miles away from Southampton. 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours. Mm-hmm. Middlesbrough is 280 miles away from Southampton. 5 hours.
There you go. It's a very valid point, and I think his partner is Emma Saunders, the Sky Sports reporter.
Yes.
I believe she'll be based in London, so Southampton to London, not too far. Maybe that will be a bit of an obstacle if the Middlesbrough job does come about, but if Will Still wants, to be a success in management, then there's the sacrifices you've got to make, particularly when it's a really good opportunity, isn't it, with a Middlesbrough being sat in the top two. So, yeah, maybe that's something that'll be on his mind, but I think if Middlesbrough want to get an exciting young manager in through the door, then you don't get much better than Will Still. Especially one who's got a point to prove as well now after how the Southampton spell went. Justin, 5 in 10. Name 5 former British Prime Ministers.
David Lloyd George, John Maynard Keynes, Winston Churchill, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown. I think John Maynard Keynes was an economist.
I was going to say...
David Cameron.
Well, you've messed it up because you were way too late at that stage. John, where the hell did John Maynard Keynes come? I mean, David Lloyd George was an interesting one to start with, but fair enough. Yeah, where did JMK come from?
My time in A-level history with you, actually. John Maynard Keynes. He was an economist.
I don't even remember him, and you're right, we did A-level history together. So, that was a very rogue one to go with. I mean, you could have gone with pretty much every Tory Prime Minister from the past few years. So there must have been 5, mustn't there?
You know me, I like to dip into the archives.
And get it wrong. Let's move on, Justin, because the next club we have is Norwich City. I think the first thing to say on Norwich's search for a manager is that sporting director Ben Napper will reportedly be leading it despite calls from supporters for him to go. The Eastern Daily Press says the club aren't looking for a firefighter, even with the poor start, which is interesting, and they hope to have a manager in place for Norwich's next game away at Birmingham just after the international break, so they're going to have to move bloody quickly. The two names who keep cropping up in reports I'm seeing, Justin, are 2 former Norwich players, Russell Martin and Gary O'Neill. The Telegraph say former Blackburn manager Jon Dahl Tomasson has been interviewed, which is also interesting. Sky Sports say the aforementioned Will Still is on the shortlist, but reports in Scotland say there may be a left field shout under consideration for the role, who just so happens to also be a former Norwich player. It is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, former Huddersfield manager Mark Fotheringham. He's currently a coach at Celtic, but we covered him a lot, didn't we, a few years ago when he was the Huddersfield manager. Justin, purely for content reasons, I want this to happen. But if I was a Norwich fan, I would definitely not want this to happen because at Huddersfield, this bloke was a disaster.
You'll not be in my team.
Is that a reference to his bizarre accent that he's got, which is a mix of like 20 different accents at once?
Yes, but then there's that quote that just pounds around, isn't it, with the clip? He's a quote machine, is Fotheringham.
Guys, if you're not training with intensity and you do 3 days out of the 5 days, you'll not be in my team. I've got a good group here. And the team, the starting 11 and the subs, they earned the right. If you want to coast, just stay at home. You're not going to play for me. It's not how it works.
He's Scottish. Why is there like New York gangster, Dutch, German in there? It's mental how many accents you can pick up in that one little sequence. But you were saying, Justin?
Yeah, well, he's been everywhere. He's quite machine. He's been everywhere as a coach. He's a former Norwich player as well, which may help. But with him, he's quite revered as a coach. A lot of Swansea fans have said him leaving as a coach at the club has led to Alan Sheehan dropping off. And Celtic fans don't want him to leave because obviously he's an interim coach up at Celtic now. So he's fitting in with his accent, I guess. But yeah, this would be interesting. Absolutely, for content reasons, would be perfect. But purely from a footballing perspective, this would be a disaster.
Yeah, things may have changed in the time that he's been away from the Championship. Maybe he's learnt a lot and looked back on it and, you know, managed to take it on board and figure out what went wrong at Huddersfield. And it wasn't completely his fault because Huddersfield were a bit of a basket case at the time. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, in the period of time that we've been covering the Championship, Justin, I've never heard a manager talk so much bullshit as this guy. Because if you cast your minds back, I was looking at my notes from a couple of years ago when he was in the Championship, and Huddersfield would constantly get battered, and he would come out afterwards and always pretend that they played well when they quite obviously didn't. And he would also have a habit of really bigging himself up and talk about how good a coach he was, including one time where he claimed Slaven Bilic once told him, "No wonder everyone in Germany is talking about you."
Because of his accent.
Maybe that's one reason, right? But it's just bizarre how much smoke he was blowing up his own arse. And there was also one occasion where he completely forgot one of his players' names in one of his first press conferences.
Yeah. Wow.
And called him the Japanese centre half. He also fell out with and alienated several players, and all of that was before you even get onto how crap the results were at Huddersfield. So him coming in at Norwich, considering everything that's going on there right now, would be hilarious to watch unfold.
Be new levels of toxicity, wouldn't it? Especially towards Ben Napper, who I know Norwich fans have set up a change.org petition to get him out of the club, which is new levels of desperation. But like I said, if Mark Fotheringham is the man, then yes, I would be considering signing that myself. That being said, no, I wouldn't, because we need it for content. It's good for content. It's good for engagement. I would steer away from that one.
Yeah, I think I would do as well. But let's go on to the manager who you think is the perfect pick for Norwich City, Justin, unless it is Mark Fotheringham, of course.
Purely for content reasons, it's mine now. I've gone with Michael Carrick. I don't think there is a better manager suited to the Norwich job right now that is available for free than Michael Carrick. I know Gary O'Neill and Yondell Thompson have interviewed. I think both of those would be a positive, but I think Michael Carrick and his blueprint are perfect. Firstly, he's worked under the same model at Middlesbrough that he would do at Norwich or could do at Norwich. You know, recruitment's done for him as a sporting director. He's a coach that has developed players, and the clubs have subsequently sold them for profit. You look at the Middlesbrough over years under Michael Carrick's been ridiculous, and with that, Norwich are and always have been a selling club. So that's a big plus when you're trying to balance the books. Thirdly, he walked into the Borough job taking over from Chris Marder with the players vastly underperforming, turned them around and they shot up at the table, finishing the playoffs. Obviously lost to Coventry, but really, really green shoots very, very quickly, which is what Norwich need right now because they need to get out of the bottom three and into a nice position. Favored a 4-2-3-1. And just look at what Michael Carrick did with Chuba Akpom. Turned him from a bit part striker into the most prolific forward in the league, playing as a second striker. What could he do with Josh Sargent in behind Matthias Kisgarden? He likes fluid possession, attacking football, quick transitions, ticks a lot of boxes. It's different from the Liam Manning's possession first approach. Did have an issue with it with Plan B, but you'd hope a few months out would have given him time to reflect and fix that.
Yeah, Carrick's stock seems to have gone up recently while he's been out of work. I think that's mainly down to him making an appearance or two on Sky Sports as a pundit. And I do like Carrick. His Middlesbrough side played some really nice football, and I think he can still go on to have a good career as a manager. I've been trying to think back, though, to how bad things were towards the end of his Middlesbrough spell, because they weren't great. And I don't think that should be forgotten from any discourse around him. The football did end up being quite slow and ineffective, but probably the biggest criticism of him was that his sides always leaked a lot of chances, even when they were doing well. That was the case, and when they weren't doing well, it was really, really bad. He also took Middlesbrough backwards ultimately. Over the 2.5 years he was there, they started brilliantly. The following 2 seasons they regressed quite badly, despite a lot of money being spent. But if he can channel that first season at Borough, particularly because they started that season terribly, just like Norwich have done this season, then it could be a great move. But Norwich are also in a precarious position. Can't really afford to get this wrong, Justin.
No, they need to get it right. And that's why I worry that Ben Napper's making that decision, because ultimately he's gone back on things. David Wagner sacked him despite being in the top 6, sacked Johannes Hoftrup for not achieving a playoff place, if you like. There's just been a raft of bad decision making. Obviously, Liam Manning's the latest, and not bringing Jack Wilshere in, or bringing Jack Wilshere in not to give him the job eventually. It's just been bizarre. And then that's before we talk about the transfers, which, if you've been listening to the podcast this season, we spoke extensively about how bad the recruitment has been, or how much money has been spent, and it's yet to come to fruition. So yeah, Ben Napper.
Yeah, that's why it's going to be very interesting to see who they do get in, because he needs to get this right. As far as who I think would be the best choice for Norwich manager, I've gone with Gary O'Neill. As we've said multiple times, Gary O'Neill will be a great appointment for most Championship sides. Did very good jobs at both Bournemouth and Wolves, so much so that he's probably deserving of another crack at the Premier League, but that doesn't seem to be forthcoming, even though he was apparently quite close to going back to Wolves last week or the week before, wasn't he? But that seemed to fall through because Wolves fans didn't want them to just try the same thing again, as opposed to them hating Gary O'Neill. But look, he did a great job at salvaging both Bournemouth and Wolves' seasons before, so I'm sure you can do the same at Norwich. He's a former Norwich player. Don't know how well regarded he is at Norwich, but if he is, that will mend the relationship between fans and the club hierarchy. And also, I've seen reports that suggest he's not in the running for the Middlesbrough or Southampton jobs, which I was a bit surprised about with the former, although you did mention earlier there may be reasons going back to when he used to play for Middlesbrough. But what that means is Norwich won't have to wait around to see if he gets a better offer from those two. So yeah, I think Gaz O'Neill will be perfect, actually, Justin.
Yeah, former player for the club. I think it works for various reasons. He's tactically very adaptable, which is good, and he vastly overachieved at Bournemouth and at Wolves. Good counter-attacking side at Bournemouth, more flexible in his approach. Wolves had to adapt when the better players were being sold as well, when not replaced. Dealt with a lot of VAR issues as well, which could have actually turned his tenure into a bit more positive. He was quite unlucky,
wasn't he, in his final season at the same time. Not. I mean, they were quite bad at the same time, but you know, it was a mix of both, I guess.
Yeah, things could have been different, is what you'd argue. But that's by the by. I do think Gary O'Neill would be a good appointment for any of these teams. He was my top choice in the summer. You know, he was free, he was available. We'll say less about yours, but I think with that he's got a lot of quality and a lot of gears to go, and I really do rate Gary O'Neill quite highly.
Who was my choice? I can't remember.
Tom Cleverley.
Oh, I see. Okay, fine. Yeah, we'll move on from that. If there's one good thing for Gary O'Neill coming down to the Championship, he won't have to deal with VAR, which I know he was losing his head
win
at
every game.
Yeah, when he was in the Premier League. Just before we get on to some more of the clubs who need managers in the Championship, just a quick reminder, ladies and gents, that we need your votes for the FSA Awards. We've been nominated for Best Football Podcast, and we need your help. Like, really need your help, because we need all the help we can get. We're up against the big boys of the football podcasting world, the likes of the Football Ramble, Guardian Football Weekly, Football Cliches, Gary Neville's flipping one of his 20 podcasts. So we need all the votes we can get from you guys. We need to bring down the elite, ladies and gents. So please make sure you click the link in the description to the FSA Awards and vote for us in Best Football Podcast. It only takes 5 seconds of your time, and we will greatly appreciate it. May I also take this opportunity to point everyone in the direction of the latest video on the Second Tier YouTube channel. It's my updated league table predictions. That's right, I've predicted how I think the Championship is going to end this season. Who's going up? Who's going down? You can get my takes by watching that video. Without giving anything away, Justin, just give me a one-word answer, please. Do you agree with my top 2?
No.
Interesting. We'll leave that there. Do you agree with my bottom 3?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you'd be more inclined to agree with my top 2 than my bottom 3, but okay, fair enough. And finally, which team in there did you entirely disagree with? You can give me a name on this one.
Stoke.
I thought you might. I would have won a lot of money there by betting on either Derby or Stoke. Not giving anything away, but why do you disagree with me so much on Stoke?
I actually think they found a bit of balance. I mean, naturally, I think I'm just higher on Stoke than you are, naturally. I think that's been very apparent over the past few weeks. But I think with Mark Robbins, he's tactically showing that he's capable of adapting. I think if they get to January, bring in another couple of strikers and they're around the top 6, I think their ceiling's quite high. They've got Maxim Televerov to come back into the team as well. They've got gears to go. I do think that.
Not getting a look in at the moment, is he, Televerov? He's been on the bench, but the defenders have just been doing so well that they've not been needed. We'll point out just one thing for some food for thought, Justin. There's only 6 points separating Stoke in 3rd and West Brom in 14th. So there's quite a lot of traffic in behind Stoke. Does that worry you at all?
It's the Championship. That's how it is. That's how it goes.
Okay, interesting. We'll see, won't we? But yes, that's the latest video on the Second Tier YouTube channel. Find out where I've put your club this season. Let's go on to Swansea City, Justin, as the next club who will pick a manager for. They are obviously the most recent one starting their search for a new manager, although I guess technically Middlesbrough are, because it took so long for Rob Edwards to move on. But look, we spoke about them at length and their situation in our reaction episode on Tuesday, shortly after the news that Alan Sheehan had been sacked. So make sure you go back and listen to that for a very in-depth chat. We were saying in that episode that Swansea are probably the least appealing of these 4 jobs because they're a club who haven't done much of note for a while now. And so we may have to think outside of the box when it comes to them. Wales Online saying early contender for the job is expected to be Swedish manager Kim Hellberg, currently at Hammarby. He was reportedly close to becoming the Swansea manager in the summer, but they decided to go with Alan Sheehan after his great spell as caretaker. So it seems like if it's going to be anyone right now, it will probably be him. But in case it's not, Justin, who would you suggest?
I'm banging the drum again. I said it in the reaction that we released on Tuesday. Michael Skubala, the Lincoln City manager, Michael Skubala. The more I read up about him, the more I like. And after that, I read up a lot about him, and I liked a lot about him. Obviously, he's a former Leeds under-21 coach, spent time as England's futsal team manager. Read into that what you will. Before going to UEFA, then back to the FA for the England coaching groups, the England age groups coach there. So he's got pedigree for development. That's a plus. He likes counter pressing. He likes an aggressive team. He likes to be active out of possession rather than passive, which is what I think Swansea were under Alan Sheehan. And with the ball, he likes his team to play vertically and through opposition. I'm a big fan of that because that's being as proactive as you need to be in a 90-minute game where Swansea haven't been at all this season. I know he's not going to favour possession because actually in League One, Lincoln average the least amount of possession in the 3rd tier, which is interesting. And it's certainly different. But the question here is, would you rather have a team be passive and bland as they were under Alan Sheehan, or nice and attractive as they were under Luke Williams, but defensively weak, or actually strike that balance and push yourselves up the table? I think Michael Skubala represents that. Love set pieces as well. Love set pieces. Big accolade here. He guided England into the top 50 in FIFA's futsal rankings for the first time ever as well.
Well, there you go. If that doesn't convince you, then I don't know what will. Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this on Tuesday, but I think Skubala would be a bad move just because I think it would be such a contrast in the style of play. Because you mentioned it there, Lincoln are very direct. Lowest average possession in League One, have played the 2nd fewest short passes in the division. And that's in League One, where half the league are direct. And look, I've been impressed with how Skabala's done at Lincoln, and I think he is deserving of a Championship job. I would not be surprised at all if we do see him in the Championship at some point in the near future. But going from Luke Williams ball to Skabala ball is like being a DJ at a school disco, playing Sabrina Carpenter, and then putting Slipknot on. I just don't think it would be sensible. It's quite the gear change, particularly at a club like Swansea, where keeping possession is so ingrained in their culture. The fans aren't a big fan of that style of football. You risk another Michael Duff situation, I think, if you do go down that route. And also, I think a lot of the players there are set up to play, in quotation marks, the Swansea way. They are very suited to having the ball at their feet and being able to, pass it around and what have you. So, yeah, I like Skabala, but I could not disagree more on this one, Justin.
I'd rather my team be Slipknot than Sabrina Carpenter.
I know you would, but Swansea fans don't. They want a bit of an espresso around with them, Justin.
Is that a song?
It's a Sabrina Carpenter song.
Okay.
You know that one, don't you?
I don't think I do.
Think about me every night.
Right,
Isn't that sweet? I guess so. That one. It is a banger, to be fair.
This is fantastic analysis. This is great.
This is why we were nominated for the FSA Awards.
What is there else to say? Look, I know that Sabrina Carpenter is ingrained in the Swansea culture. I know that, I get that, I appreciate that, but I think sometimes you need to rip up the blueprint and go in a different direction. And I think that's what Swansea need to do, because they've not looked like going anywhere near the Premier League. And the time they did, it was under Steve Cooper, where they were playing deep, playing flat, playing disciplined. And Michael Skabala represents a little bit of that with a little bit of Slipknot.
But Swansea fans want Sabrina Carpenter, Justin, you big man-child. It's another Sabrina Carpenter song.
Sorry, it's lost on me.
Please, please, please. Let's go to... That's another one, just in case you're wondering, because she's clearly not very well versed in Sabrina Carpenter. Let's go to my pick for the next Swansea manager. I've gone with a manager who was also mentioned in Tuesday's reaction episode, and it was a shout which got a lot of praise from not only you, Justin, but also producer Tom, who I'm always fighting for praise from. So I'm going to mention him again, Johannes Hoff-Thorup, who was at Norwich last season. I think he would be the perfect fit for Swansea, a manager who does have a hunger for keeping the ball. Norwich had the second highest possession in the Championship last season, and they played some really nice attacking football along the way. They scored the second most goals in the league, conceded a fair few goals, admittedly, but I do think a lot of that was down to the rather poor form of Angus Gunn in goal last season, because underlying data-wise, Norwich were actually really good, a lot better than their final position in the table suggested anyway. And the fact Norwich are doing so miserably now perhaps makes the job he did look even better. In Denmark, he had a great record of working with young players. Swansea have the fourth youngest squad in the league, so that certainly helps. And dare I point out, Swansea have a pretty good record with Danish managers over the years, so I suggested Thorup pretty much off the top of my head in Tuesday's episode. But actually, the more I think about it, he genuinely fits the job perfectly, I think.
Well, it sounds like they're going to dip into Scandinavia anyway with Kim Hellberg, so that could be interesting. But I do like the Hoff-Thorup shout. I think it's a really, really positive one. I think something that stuck with me when we interviewed him. So definitely go, Swansea fans, check that out. It's in the feed. He's quick at recognising the key players in the squad and playing to their strengths. One question you threw at him was, do you think Norwich were too much of a one-man team? And he said, no, it's just you play to the key players that you've got around you. And I do think Swansea have got plenty of quality that any manager can come in and work with, especially in that final third, that Alan Sheehan just could not get a blend out of. And I think with Hoff-Thorup he's going to play to the strengths. He's going to play something a little bit more attractive, and he's going to get a tune out of that final third, as we saw at Norwich. It's just whether or not Swansea are in a position where they need someone with a little bit more sort of defensive mindset. But like you pointed out,
this season, Justin, they need someone who knows how to go forwards, don't they? Because they've been shite going forwards, haven't they?
It's the balance that worries me, is when you start to open things up going forwards, how bad is it actually at the back? That's the question we're yet to really understand. So No, I think it's a really positive one. I think with Swansea is maybe they've opted for safer options like Luke Williams, like Alan Sheehan in the past. Maybe they do need to take a risk. And I think one of Hellberg, Turrup and Skubala are actually all pretty good risks.
It'll be interesting to see which route they go down. One final thing I will add on Swansea. There was a brilliant piece written by Tom Coleman from Wales Online this week where he talked about where it's gone wrong for Alan Sheehan. It gave you a really good insight as to what he was like as a manager. I actually came out of it feeling a bit sorry for Sheehan because he seemed like he was really passionate about the job. But one thing it did mention was that, you know how Swansea's new owners have been getting the likes of flipping Snoop Dogg and Luka Modric involved with the club. Well, apparently that has raised expectations with Swansea, and that was part of the reason why Sheehan's gone, despite results not being terrible. Do you know what I mean? So with that in mind, it'll be interesting to see who they get in, because when you bring in the likes of Snoop Doggy Dogg, Justin, that raises all sorts of expectations. The final club looking for a manager is, of course, Southampton, although they don't appear to be in much of a hurry, do they? It seems very much like they're willing to give Tonda Eckert, the caretaker, a fair audition for the role. He has won 2 games in 2, to be fair, so we'll see if that continues. Gary O'Neill was being linked with the job, but it seems that Southampton fans have made it pretty clear on social media that they don't want him, with him being an ex-Portsmouth player. Michael Carrick has been mentioned, as well as a return for Russell Martin. But who are we thinking with this one, Justin?
I've gone with a former Saints manager, Ryan.
Oh, are you actually saying who I think you're saying?
Former Saints manager whose name starts with an R.
I'm going to assume it's not Russell Martin.
A former Saints manager that was sacked by the club rather than the Premier League, Ryan.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's still Russell Martin.
Ooh. It's Ralph Hasenhüttl.
Oh, you little tease.
Yes. Yeah. I think, look, I think we all know what he brings style of play-wise. We know a lot about him in that sense because he's spent a lot of time in England. We've read all about him. High tempo, aggression, front foot, intense pressing. We know that's going to come in. But actually, I think it's what he brings off the pitch. It's the vibrancy that I think left St Mary's when he actually was sacked. I don't think we've seen that level of positivity and upbeat and honesty from a manager since. I think Russell Martin did a decent job getting them back into the Premier League, but he did so poorly.
There's the by episode dig at Russell Martin. Carry on.
So with Hasenhüttl, I think he's a figure that's quite well held in high regard with fans, with players, and actually with staff behind the scenes as well. And I think the humour that he brought, the friendliness, the style of play, the quality, the success. He's going to bring back a ray of sunshine to the club that, as I say, left. I think when he was sacked, I don't think we've had that much positivity surrounding them since he left. It's been up and down, a lot of volatility. So I think getting a familiar face in who is well revered by supporters is the route to go down here. Yeah,
you've brought up Ralph Hasenhüttl a lot recently when it comes to manager vacancies, and for all the reasons you stated there, I totally get it. The only question mark I have is, would he be up for returning? Because he's only just left a Bundesliga job, hasn't he? He was at Wolfsburg, who seemed to actually be doing pretty well before a bad run of form, which saw him get sacked. So I don't know if he'll fancy the drop down to the Championship, but also I don't know what his relationship is like with Southampton's owners, because he was doing brilliantly and then everything seemed to go a bit Pete Tong, and that coincided with them taking over the club when Hasenhüttl was in charge. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on the best of terms with them. But also, actually, there is another point. He actually fell out with a lot of the players when he was there, and Southampton still have some players who were around when he was last there, albeit I don't know if any of them were the ones he fell out with, obviously. So that's got to be kept in mind as well, Justin. Just a few little points there.
Yeah, the Sport Republic thing, the owners at Southampton, does come into thinking a little bit, but I can't see anyone coming in. This is what you need to really realise is Will Still was perfect. And if Southampton hadn't shot themselves in both feet, tied their arms behind their back, and clobbered their head against the wall in the Premier League last season, where things were so damaged that it's damaged beyond control, I think Will Still would have been a huge success at Southampton because the quality of players that they got I think there's a good squad there, a very, very good squad. And that's why I think Sport Republic probably have to, and Ralph Hasenhüttl actually, probably both need to swallow their pride a little bit and actually go down this route, because I think the success that he had at the club while he was there was significant. It was significant, and Southampton haven't known that. When he came in, there was a lot of apathy surrounding the club. Brought the club back up, and I think that the club's in a similar position now where they need someone with a big personality, and he's one of them. And yeah, that's why I think he'd be a good pick. But there are things working against him. But the things working against him, I think, are going to work against every manager who could be considered for this job.
Well, he's got more, hasn't he, because of the previous, which we just mentioned a second ago. I'm also not a huge fan, personally, of clubs going back to former managers, because I said the same with Javi Gracia and Watford. Just because you enjoyed a lot of success under that manager doesn't mean the good times are suddenly going to start rolling again because he's back. You know what I mean? So it's not something I like to do. The manager who I would suggest for Southampton, Carlos Corberán. So right now he's currently still at Valencia, but is believed to be close to the sack. So if that happens, he'd be a terrific appointment for any championship side, as long as he's willing to jump straight back into management, of course. Look, we're both huge fans of his, Justin. He did an unbelievable job at Huddersfield, did a really good job at West Brom as well in the circumstances. They were dealing with a lot of issues off the pitch with the previous owners, and EFL imposed spending plans. But he kept them competing in the playoffs despite a very restricted budget, and that's really why he got the Valencia job, where initially he did brilliantly. They were in the relegation zone when he came in, got them finishing mid-table. They only lost 3 of the 21 games he was in charge of last season, and they were against Real Madrid, Barcelona and Atletico. So if you're picking 3 teams in the La Liga to lose to, probably them. It's not gone as well this season, but there may be other reasons why that's the case. I don't follow La Liga, so I don't really know. And look, he's ultimately got a great managerial record everywhere he's been. He's not married to one style of play. He's able to be flexible. He knows how to tighten up a defence, which will be very useful for Southampton. And previously, he's done great jobs in England on limited budgets. That's not the case at Southampton. So I'd be interested to see how he gets on with more resources at his disposal, because I said it before with him, and I still think it's the case now. He's a Premier League quality manager in my eyes.
Yeah, he's never worked with good resources. His job at Huddersfield was fantastic on nothing, literally pennies. If not that.
Not literally pennies. That's a bit overdramatic.
Well, I think it was literally pennies. It felt, well, not literally, but it felt like it. It felt like it. He wasn't buying players for 3 pence or anything. Who does that now? But they were begging, borrowing, and well, not stealing because it's theft, but you get the point. And I think if West Brom were a normal club, a normal functioning club, he would have had them in the Premier League. You've got to think back to last season. He turned for 6 months of last season. Josh Maja was on for the Golden Boot. He turns very average players or players that have been performing below par into amongst the league's most consistent. Danny Ward at Huddersfield, he got double-figure goals out of him, which was astonishing. Turned Naby Sarr into a very competent defender as well. He's done a fair bit of good for individuals, and I think just what can he do with a group of Premier League players? The question there is, he's never worked with that. So is it too big for him? Is it too much for him? That's something that could work against him. The Valencia thing is interesting. They've been circling the drain for a long time under their owner Peter Lim. So it feels natural that they're going to get relegated. The La Liga version of Wolves, I think, would be the best comparison.
They're not doing that badly. We'll make that clear.
Not that badly, but they've been circling the drain.
Considering they won the league, 20 odd years ago, then it's a far cry from that. But I completely agree with you, Justin. Carlos Corberán, we cannot praise the jobs he did enough, really, at Huddersfield and West Brom, can we? Because they were fantastic. And whoever gets him next, assuming it's a club in England, I would not be surprised, actually, if it was a Premier League job, because I think he would be deserving of that. But I don't think Premier League clubs will be willing to give him the chance. Do you know what I mean? So if it's a championship club, they will be getting themselves a cracking manager. Just before we go, Justin, I wanted to move away from managers and talk about the latest regarding a takeover at Sheffield Wednesday, because the Sheffield Star says at least 10 parties have now offered £50 million proof of funds to the club's administrators. Two groups have also been given a tour of the club's facilities. The administrators have set a soft deadline of November the 21st for offers to buy the club, so in other words, a week on Friday. Then a 2-week negotiation period will begin, with the aim for a preferred bidder to be selected on December the 5th. Now, it could still be several weeks after that point before a takeover gets done, but if everything can get done before the January transfer window, that would be a big boost for Wednesday, wouldn't it? Not just in terms of this season, but building towards bouncing back next season.
Of course, it would be a big boost, but they can't spend any money because they're still going to have transfer restrictions. So whether it's done before the January transfer window or not, I think it doesn't really matter, because Wednesday are going to be batting around the free agents for the rest of the season. The only difference it would make is with the loan signings. So almost, sort of, wouldn't say not trying to bring a damper down on it, but I can't see it happening before January, because it takes a while. But also, I don't think it matters anyway, because Wednesday can't spend money. So actually, they get to January 31st. They're going to need to ask the EFL to register free agents anyway. So I think the situation is unchanged for Wednesday, whether it goes through or not.
I don't think it's unchanged because, one, they can sign loan players as well. They can't spend fees on those loan players, but they will be able to get more loan players through the door. But also, when it comes to free agents, they would be able to spend more on wages for those kind of players as well. So you'd be getting a better caliber of free agents, hopefully, as well. And in some circumstances as well, you may be able to convince clubs to forego a fee for players who are contracted to clubs, so that they can sign them as well to get them off the books at whatever club they are, so they can go to Wednesday. So that's why it would be significant if they could get it done before January. But with regards to free agents, Wednesday have been holding talks with the EFL over being allowed to sign players who are out of contract again. Of course, they were banned from doing so before because of the missed wage payments, but cash flow has now improved after the club went into administration. The Sheffield Star say FIFA will be involved in any decision because of money owed to foreign clubs for previous transfers, which is interesting. Some of the free agents who reportedly could be joining Wednesday, if they get given the green light, include former Manchester United defender Timothy Fosu-Mensah, as well as Liam Cooper, formerly of Leeds, who's been linked with the club for a while and I believe has been training with them as well. Completely forgot about Fosu-Mensah, that he existed as a player.
Yeah, I don't think he's played a lot of football over the past couple of years, to be honest with you.
I mean, I'm on Leverkusen Monty at one point, but I'm not sure what he's been doing recently.
Well, no, I'm on his Wikipedia, and he said he's not played since 2023. Okay. And I know he's been without a club since last summer, which is a long old time. He's capped by the Netherlands, which is slightly mind-blowing. But yeah, look, if he's fit and firing, then why not? But there'll be kids in that team who have played more games at senior level than he has, because he's not yet made over 100 appearances as a professional footballer. Liam Cooper has experience. This is the market that Sheffield Wednesday are unfortunately batting in. It's going to be difficult, but they're players that can prop up the squad, and that relying on children won't be a factor, and that's an important thing as well.
Yeah, it is always ideal having adults in your team, isn't it, as opposed to children. But yeah, this is what I mean, that if Wednesday do get a takeover done, then they will be able to get higher caliber free agents, I think, because these guys, all solid pros, but if they do get a takeover, then they will have more leg room, shall we say.
Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain waiting in the wings.
Maybe. I wouldn't say no, Justin. Maybe Pape Cisse, because he's been knocking about at that non-league club, hasn't he?
Maybe like 7 goals at the weekend.
Yeah, maybe this is the calling for him to get back into the professional leagues of English football. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what Wednesday do over the coming months, definitely. Another interesting thing, Justin, which may have gone under the radar for a lot of people, still City derby after this international break. Oof. So, yeah, tasty times indeed for Sheffield Wednesday. It's a big few weeks in general, really, isn't it? With not only the takeover, but obviously their biggest game of the season, because even though Wednesday are probably going down this season, there's definitely a lot of pride still to play for. But there we go, ladies and gents. This has been the Second Tier podcast, and this has been a news roundup of everything going on from across the Championship, as well as us matchmaking all the clubs who need managers. We'll be back again on Sunday where we'll be chatting to a special guest. Very interesting indeed. So all will be revealed there and then. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks.
Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.